Lisa Thie, the Data for Good sector lead at Launch Consulting. This season, we're sticking a little closer to home, but thinking just as big, harnessing the power of data to create a better global community. This is Navigating Abroad. My guest this week is Jennifer Saha, the founder and CEO of Golden Bridge Strategies. Jen has built a career out of helping the government achieve digital transformation at every level, and I was so excited to pick her brain about using her passion to impact people's lives, having the confidence to go into business for herself during a pandemic, and so much more. You don't want to miss this one. Welcome to Napa, Jennifer.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
to see you.
It's wonderful to be here.
I never am disappointed when we have an opportunity to sit down and chat.
Twist my arm to come out to a beautiful place like this and chat with one of my favorite people, so even better.
So Jennifer, you run your own consultancy. I would love to hear, the origin story of how do you become this woman titan in business, bringing the public and private sector together?
Yeah, so, history of me, I worked in the public sector for a decade and was able to see all of the challenges that government goes through from that perspective as an employee of the state. Understanding things like how do you find a solution to a problem, and it's more difficult in government because you can't look everywhere. You have to look in these specified places, and you can't contract with anyone. You can't call your friend up that knows a great idea and just have them come in and fix it. So understanding all of those dynamics, and then jumped out into the private sector and worked for a technology trade association, really understood the industry and how tech companies interact with government and all of the crazy hoops they have to jump through to try to help government and ultimately the citizens that are served by those governments. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's when travel got really rough, and
yes.
I had a newborn and realized I couldn't travel all over the United States every week. And said, is there a better way to do this closer to home? I'm born and raised in California, worked for California government, and decided I can do this on a more limited scale, just working in California and helping the government that is nearest and dearest to my heart. So started a consulting firm and just decided in order to maintain a successful marriage on top of having a newborn, I probably couldn't be gallivanting across the country every week. So decided to start my consulting firm. Did the math. I needed 2 clients to make it work, like financially to make it work, and had some discussions, gave notice at my job, had my clients in my eyesight, and then found out I was pregnant again.
Surprise.
Yeah, which was unexpected, to say the least.
I like to call my second child more of an outcome than a strategy. Very happy he's here.
Yes, love her to death. But yeah, at the time, I'm just launching a business. Like, I had just filed all of my paperwork and got a positive pregnancy test. So it was a little bit of an oh shit moment. But we made it work. My husband was super supportive, was like, we can do this, you can do this. 2 clients, you just need 2 clients, you can do it. And we've really grown since then. I started my business in August of 2019. We just hit our 3-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And, 6 months later, March, I have a baby and the pandemic hits all at once. I think everyone was a little freaked out at that time, but honestly, the pandemic was great when you're dealing with the need for government to be super agile, super responsive, and shift on a dime in ways that really only technology can help them do.
Yes.
And so it was a tremendous opportunity to be working in government technology at that time, and presented my clients especially with some incredible opportunities to really serve everyone that worked with government.
Yeah, it's so interesting how there were so many technology enablers that we've been talking about for years that we've been trying to get in the hands of users at both the public and the private sector. Remote work and the ability to be more flexible with how people engage.
I mean, we have to back it up a little bit because emerging technology in government is a solid 5 to 10 years behind emerging technology in everyone else's lives. So what the state was struggling with at the time was paper and we only take paper applications, but we can't now because we're not physically there and we're not handling paper. And we don't have legal authority to accept digital signatures. Like, these were the challenges. Remote work, sure, but you're looking at a workforce that had never done that before. You're looking at IT systems that didn't have the capacity to support it. Cybersecurity wasn't a factor at the time because it's like, what's a VPN? It was sort of like all of these things had to happen overnight, and the pandemic was horrendous for so many people, but it presented an opportunity. Like in every great challenge, there's an opportunity, and that was the opportunity for so many technological advancements that I think government would still be grappling with, like, taking into account today if it weren't for that.
So out of this disruption emerged a whole new way of functioning that's going to allow us to take advantage of some of these digital infrastructure types of investments that the government's now making.
Totally.
Do you mind sharing some examples for somebody that doesn't understand the industry of what consultants do with the government?
So I have clients that will help government in any way that technology can help them, whether it's a consultant and they're implementing a software system or customizing a software build. It's sort of any kind of service or product that you think of when you think of technology. And really, it's at the foundation of everything. Even when you look at vaccine administration, right? Like, all of a sudden, we have to get hundreds of thousands of doses of vaccines to pharmacies. How do you track all of that? How do you keep track of it? How do I have a digital vaccine card that I can pull up on my phone as opposed to having to carry around a piece of paper to show that I've been vaccinated? How do we make sure all that information is secure and compliant with HIPAA?
So you were able to meet them at the moment they were at and look at these challenges of regulated data, and how do you consider the landscape of going digital when you have to really take in mind all the regulation environments and being able to use it in a responsible way, but then also not be so inhibited that you can't be reactive to the needs for public health. I mean, there was a real urgency to the problem. And I don't think a lot of people know that California really led the way in a lot of breaking through these barriers, because we were the first to get a vaccine rolled out, with some of our providers being in Sacramento with Blue Shield of California and on the consulting side. So very cool to see what the power can come together when the public and private sector work in harmony versus working independently.
Well, it's what really drives, like, my passion to do this kind of business, because what better industry to work with than government? It has an impact on every single one of our lives, right? Every single one of our families' lives as citizens that live and pay taxes and support this government. If you can't work with them, then work for them is kind of my motto, and that's what I've been able to do. It's all about making government work better because it has an impact on all of us.
And I think we're defined as a society by how we treat our most vulnerable, right? And so being able to get more for our money, so to speak, as taxpayers, to get the better impacts and outcomes that we're looking for. It's really exciting to see you bringing in the best minds in the room to be collaborative with our leaders and making sure that they have the best choices possible as they're making these decisions. Can you talk to me a little bit about what your work looked like 5 years back versus today? How has all of these events changed the landscape?
Sure. Government's its own unique beast in that they're dealing with the public's funds, and the motivations behind working with government are very different than a private sector company where it's about the bottom line and profit and how much money you're going to make. Government doesn't need to make more money. They're taxpayer funded. Their goal, the argument is, like, government is the largest nonprofit there is. Like, they aim to break even every single year. So it's less about, like, how can you save me money and help the bottom line, and more about what can you do to make our lives easier and better and more fulfilled. So it is a completely different landscape today than it was 5 years ago, mainly because of the way the economy has shifted around. We're really fortunate here in the state of California that we have budget surpluses.
So they've always been mission aligned, but the ability to execute that mission has been limited in past years, and we're starting to see that tide has turned.
Right, like advanced planning and looking forward 5 years from now. What's your scenario going to look like? Taking a step back and even looking at modernizing your technology systems. The government is still working with, like, mainframe technology from 25 years ago, and it's like, we don't have money. We don't have money to replace these systems. Sorry, like they're still running. We're just going to continue doing what we're doing. And now is a kind of pivotal time because there is money to modernize and to look at the new technologies and to bring them in and say, how can we, use what you have, but do it in a more efficient way that's going to make everyone's lives so much better and easier.
Yeah, and as you accelerate in that digital transformation and with that mission lens, being able to bring in technologies like cloud computing, being able to accelerate the impact that they can have on the taxpayers' experience and things like climate change and regulating forest fires, being able to look at much larger data sets and making more informed decisions on the front lines.
Or even just looking at data, period. Like, it wasn't really something like we don't have money to collect data and to clean it and to sort it out and make use of it, but now it's something that they do. And I'm not talking a dashboard. I love that when someone's like, we want analytics. And I'm like, no, you want a dashboard.
That's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing, but like you're finally seeing an appetite to actually invest in some of these systems and technologies that will be able to give you clean, good data that'll help you make informed policy decisions, to the point where like every decision we make should be driven by really good quality data, and it's just not something the state ever had before.
And I've seen that the state has invested in this space. We were at the launch of the Women in Data chapter for government that you're leading, and we had some amazing speakers there. Do you mind sharing some of the amazing women that are leading from a digital transformation and data science perspective of the state?
I mean, I just love this about California. We, as you mentioned, we're launching a chapter of the Women in Data organization that's focused on the government in the state of California. And we're super lucky. We have a chief data officer that is a woman. We have a CIO that is a woman. We have a secretary of government operations that's a woman. We have a lieutenant governor that is a woman. So, I mean, I think the stars are kind of aligning for like the female impact on this to just be that much better.
I never thought I'd see this level of innovation and the focus and bringing that broader, more diverse perspective about what kinds of problems that we have to solve. What kinds of information do we need to be making the right decisions at the moments that matter? And really thinking through how do we get representation of our constituents in the room to make sure that we are making the right decisions with the budgetary spends that we have. Such a wonderful moment to see us moving forward in. And I'm so thrilled that you're bringing people that honestly have been in my network and the private sector for years that are just those wise guides, the sages of what strategic thinking and what digital infrastructure could look like, from things like transportation to public health to law enforcement. How are all the ways that we can find those aligned goals that don't cross partisan problems? We all want safer streets. We all want reduction in human trafficking. We all want better healthcare for our citizens. And so really cool to see us taking a much more data-informed approach versus a opinion-based.
It's incredible to see and to finally have the impetus behind government by way of funding mainly, and initiative from some of these inspiring women to really be willing to tackle these problems.
So in my experience in the private sector, failures have accelerated a lot of my learnings. Do you have any key failures that you can think about that you think our listeners could learn from in terms of trying to move a system, trying to help a system come forward and keep up with disruption?
I thought getting pregnant again after just starting a new company, what might have been that failure. I think really it's maybe I've underestimated like the willingness of government, this massive archaic institution really, to be able to change because it's the right thing. It's not that easy. And a lot of the work I do with my clients is coaching them on why that is and explaining to them why it's not that easy. So they don't always love me because I'm like, offering a lot of no's, but it's in their best interest. And I think that's maybe my biggest failure, is just like underestimating how difficult some of this change is.
As somebody that likes to see positive impact, I can relate to the impatience feeling when you see the opportunity ahead. But I think one of the things you're not giving yourself enough credit for is you really can't drive effective change unless you really understand where you are today in order to create a map towards the future. And now you're leading as an entrepreneur to make sure that they come together at the right places at the moments that matter to drive the right choices for our citizens. And I believe that you just launched a new committee around cybersecurity. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
I also am involved and run government relations for a technology trade association in the state of California. And we have a new focus on cybersecurity, a huge issue. It always has been, but again, with government being about 5 years behind the rest of the world, it's a huge focus in government right now. And it's everything from ransomware to what should I click on as a state employee to how are we protecting our data. I think everyone is best served when we're able to do this, but we're partnering with the state. So we have the state's chief information security officer co-chairing this cybersecurity committee with industry and sitting down and bringing agenda items. On our first call, he said, well, I want to outline what I want to get out of this. And I just love that because it's like, wow, we as an industry can provide so much help and assistance to our government, and here they are at the table telling us how we can do that. It's just bringing them together is like, it's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. So Jennifer, the reason we wanted to talk to you is because I think you're a great example of leading and being bold. Can you talk about some ways that you try to show up in your life in a bold way as an entrepreneur, as a working mom, as a technology leader, and as a working woman in the world?
I think it's just exhibiting the behavior that you want in your team and in those around you and in others. Speaking the truth in power to power has always really served me well and gained me some incredible mentors throughout my career where it's like, no, they don't want a yes man. And I'm the same way. Like, I hire people that are by far way smarter than me, absolutely way smarter than me, because like if I am the max that we have in our organization, there's a problem, right? Like we should be enhanced by our teams. And so I think it's a lot of sort of leading by example, building a strong team around me, and having the tough discussions that maybe clients don't love to hear, or maybe the state doesn't love to hear, but it's something that needs to be said. And
yeah, getting clear on what the actual problem is so that you can align and find a path forward that everybody benefits from.
Yeah.
You have to not only get a seat at the table, but change the conversation.
For sure. And just like being bold. Like I remember I was like 25 and I was interviewing with a member of the governor's cabinet for a position in his state agency. And he said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And my like crazy, bold 25-year-old self said to him, like, your seat looks really good. And he laughed and he said, in 5 years, you can have it. Like, I'm out of here in 5 years. And I was like,
perfect.
Okay, all right. So it's like having that confidence, and maybe on the inside, you don't always have it, but just exhibiting it outwardly, I think is really important and goes a long way in sort of commanding a situation.
I like that advice. So for people that are inspired by our conversation today and would like to keep tabs on you and what you're working on and how they can be involved, do you mind sharing the places they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a great website. I have an incredible team that is predominantly women. We just hired our first male employee. I told him he was my diversity hire. But we're at goldenbridgestrategies.com. Golden Bridge, if you've been to Sacramento, the Tower Bridge is that giant golden bridge that we drive across every day to get downtown. And we're really focused on just connecting industry to government in the state of California.
Thank you so much for your time today, Jennifer. Really appreciate it. It's wonderful
seeing you.
This is wonderful.
You too.